Start. Start. Okay. Good evening, all of you. Hope I'm audible. If I'm audible, kindly let me know. So, welcome to this session. This session is today on public administration. As you know, most of you might be in anticipation of the result, which has been little delayed by the UPSC. As your prelims result will be out, obviously you'll have no time left. And those who are expecting to qualify, definitely they require to muster the courage right now. So today we'll be talking about very simple topic, very simple idea, right? Imagine the society in which you are living without the basic amenities you have. Now, there was a time when people were living definitely in communities where the prominent purpose of survival or prominent purpose of survival for them was merely to accompany each other. Fine. Now, imagine a scenario like that in which people were being together, cohabiting, merely to survive the onslaught or the attempt of nature to obviously somewhere scare us or threaten us the very survival for which we were living. Now, imagine the idea that something which emerged with the evolution of the society from a nomadic to the modern, or we can use the word post-modern societies. So our lecture today will not be on the usual lines of the strategy and the template. We'll talk about those things also. But yes, first fundamental question, the first simplest idea we'll try to address is what exactly is the nature of the subject that we are going to study. Most of you might have, or many of you might have already studied your foundation classes. This is basically an introduction class, an orientation to the Target 300 program or the crash course, or you can use the words like quality enrichment, mark improvement, score enhancement, whatever, right? Ultimately, the target is same, to qualify and score better than others. Others, obviously, who are in the competitive sphere, who are giving exams with you. So, primarily, the idea of public administration or the study of this subject is as old as the civilization and probably precedes the civilization as well. Most of you who are new or who have studied public administration might understand the meaning of the term civilization, or at least you have studied this in your Indian society chapter or social justice part of 2 or paper 1. The civilization is the most evolved form of society. And I would say it is the cultural apex. It is the most evolved form of the cultural attributes that a society can have. That means the most developed form of cultural traits gives birth to a civilization. So even though civilizations have come and gone, right, the primary system, the primary basis of sustaining and running those civilizations has been public administration, or to simply use the word administration. So your subject is quite old. People say that subject is new. It's not. The theoretical idea of the subject was born 150 years old, but subject per se, the study or the system per se is right. I would say it is in sync with the human civilization. Fine. So let us say what you are going to study, what we are going to do in the next 30 minutes. This will be a short session, a brief session. So next 30 minutes, what we are going to do is not only will help you master this subject for civil services exam, and obviously its allied impacts and benefits on general studies as well, but also it will have a profound impact on the way you are going to govern the society. Public administration is a subject of preeminence for UPSC. It's a subject for, is it audible clearly? Fine. Preeminence, and to a large extent you can say something which practically runs the. So anybody who feels, who has certain myths about this subject, it is theoretical, it is not. It is not theoretical. Secondly, if someone feels that it is boring, it can never be. Do you think politics, gossip, media news today, social media memes, social media reels, right? All these things are more interesting today. But if you imagine, if you start reading this subject, you will realize it is much more interesting than. It will help you understand the crux of what all you are watching. The ultimate objective of the study of this subject is to understand how we as human beings, how we as citizens, or how we as part of a society, how we live, how we exist, and how we can improve, how we can transform. That is the primary purpose of this study. So is it boring? It is not at all boring. It is directly tuned into the contemporary. Now let me see how many of you can answer, right? You can also write, I'm watching your, good evening, good evening. Fine, so I'm also watching your comments, right? So let me say, today there was a news, right, that the World Bank has predicted that India's growth, overall growth scenario would be somewhere around 6.3%, which will be almost better than many of the large economies of the world. That's the World Bank's prediction, at least for this quarter. So, though it has declined from the previous quarter, but India's growth would be 6.3%. Do you make any sense of this? Anybody, can you just let me know? What sense do you make of this statement of the World Bank? That out of the existing large economies, India's GDP growth will be somewhere around 6.3%, and that would be much better. What does it mean? So don't sleep like this, right? So, what do you make sense of this? Anybody? Can you just tell me what does it mean? Do you think India's economic system is capitalist today? Or do you think that India's economic growth is mainly triggered, mainly influenced by the role of public administration? The government is the main driver of economic, or is it the private sector? What do you think? Growth in the midst of uncertainties and turmoil, correct? But I am simply asking, is this growth a consequence of the private sector, or it is a consequence of the government? And you might say that it is a combination of both. We are in the era of public-private partnership, but try to understand still the primary driver of economic growth in this country, in spite of the liberalization, privatization, globalization, and so many other organizations, decentralization, democratization, a lot of things, still government holds the key. You can look at the fiscal deficit, you can look at the budgetary deficit, you can look at the increasing expenditure of the government. And there was also another news, very interesting, that the NREGA budget, NREGA outlay, which has been decided for this year, right, would be restricted to 60% of. And this is for the first time which has happened. NREGA was passed in 2005. Since then, it is the first time that has happened that its outlay will be restricted. Right, whole of nation approach, Pranav. Okay. Fine, governance, private sector and societies. Correct, Kumar Mangalam. Fine. See, I'm talking about the idea. You're right. But the idea is that, see, the compromises are to be made when we are growing, when we go for development. we have to make compromises. And who can think of the compromises made? Is it the market economy, which is governed by demand and supply, or it is the government, or it is the administration, which somewhere regulates the? I'm not saying it controls it, but regulate is. Regulation may be taken as a positive word today in the era of market economic growth. See, PubAd becomes very interesting if you start making sense of things you are studying around. If you don't do that, right, obviously it may seem to be boring, but I told you it's much more interesting than all those reels and memes towards studying, because you're not listening to them, you're not looking at them, you're actually studying them, right? Maybe hours and hours and hours of scrolling it. See, so PubAd is interesting. The third interesting aspect is, right, is there a confluence of theory and practice in public administration? Yes, it is. In fact, it is a practitioner's subject. So I'm using a term which many of you, because you have more or less studied, many of you, right? So if I say it is it, right? Very quickly we'll talk about, is it theoretical? Is it purely theoretical? No doubt it is theoretical, but is it purely theoretical? No. Fine. Is it boring? Not at all. Some people will say, oh, is it practical? Yes, it is practical, because it is generally practitioners. There's a very strong correlation of theory plus practice. Simple example would help you understand the post or position of district collector. Fine. Can you tell me what has happened to district collector's role under the Waqf Amendment Act? What is the position of collector under the Waqf Amendment Act? What has happened? Very quickly, we don't have much of time, right? Anyone? This is a very famous statement. Bureaucracy is the invisible government. That's a focus on the neutrality, apolitical orientation, and something working from behind the curtain. But then government, or there is no government if there is no bureaucracy. So check over dispute of land, correct? Now see, the correct word you have used, Pranav, you have used the correct word, praxis. We'll talk about these things, right? Don't worry. So you're right. But let's say district collector's role has increased. Now, is it something that you have to mug up? You don't have to mug up. Is it something that you have to go and write only as a template, 4 points, 3 headings? Yes, we'll do that also. That is very important. But then what is the substance under those headings are equally important. So when you say collector's role enhanced, and I'm coming to the idea why. See, now in practice, we have increased the power of the collectors, right? Basically, a concept called Waqf by use, if you know about it, right? Waqf by use. That is something which is being used for a particular purpose, would be inherently to be accepted as the Waqf property. But now that Waqf by use has to be reviewed by collector. It cannot be simply acquired by the Waqf. Increasing authority, correct. You agree to that? Right. So now let's come back. Now when you say in practice, see, this is happening. Many of you may not be, let's make it pink now, right? Let's go pink, fine, or purple. Right. So many of you might not, now many of you will agree with the idea that we are talking about Panchayati Raj institutions. Under Panchayati Raj institutions, one of the biggest contentious, one of the biggest critical issue is what? That the collector's role must reduce. So how public administration as an area of study is going to collaborate, bargain between these two different ideas? Under the Waqf, the collector's role is increasing, and under the Panchayati Raj institution or democratic decentralization, the collector's role has to be reduced. How are you going to make sense of these two statements? Now, here is the catch. That is why PubMed becomes so interesting. It is very influential subject. The problem is that we do not make sense or use of this knowledge in our exam. We generally stick to, like I told you, right? We are too bothered, too concentrated with the facts, mugging up, memorizing those facts and those information, that we are not able to make sense of how to utilize this. And that is exactly what we are going to do in these 45, 50 odd days. That is the target. And this time I have taken most of the control or the strings under my hand. I'm not even believing in the student who says, okay, fine, no, sir, I understand. Now I'll go and write. No, we are not going to do that. We are going to make you write everything. And that is what exactly you have to write in the exam. There are proven records that when students have written the class notes, they have got 290, 285, 286 marks in the 303, but that was a little previous era, 2016, 17, I'm talking about. See, people have. The only problem comes where, right? When you have more masters than you can actually understand. So when you start picking up ideas from multiple sources and then you don't understand the book important, take a teacher, your notes, what. Eventually you end up being nobody. Right? So at least you have to leave that. Once you are into the process, be in the process and only come out of it once you have written the main. Fine. So you have to make sense of such paradoxes. You have to make sense of such extreme diversities which are visible in this subject. And that makes this subject very interesting. Fine. So see, it's a practitioner subject. You have to make sense of it. You have to practically understand it. You have to realize that how this is going to change, how this is going to impact each. Fine. Now, is it low scoring? Not at all. Now, there is a difference. Is it low scoring or it is tough scoring? Yes, it is tough scoring. When I say tough scoring, it is for obviously the people who have studied and now they want to improve or they want to actually achieve the result in terms of what they have studied. So for a student of public administration who is aspiring to have marks for himself, so he is basically competing with his own knowledge or with his own caliber, not with others. Right? Others obviously they have their own deficiencies and problems. So is it low scoring? No. But is it tough scoring? Yes. Or is it challenging to score? Yes. Like I told you the same thing. Why it is challenging to score? Because it is common sense. And most of you know common sense is common, highly uncommon. That is the problem. When you understand new public management, when you understand new public service, or when you want to write something about post-NPM developments, post-Weberian developments, you have to realize that ultimately you are not or you should not get stuck to the theory, but you have to simplify the theory to fit into the present circumstances. Theoretically, you should be so clear, conceptually, you should be so clear that instantly when you write the theory or when you try to explain the theory, instantly a very interesting idea or an example or a case study must come to you and you can write. Now that hardly happens because before that you have not brainstormed yourself. You have just tried to mug up few examples and you have tried using them more or less all the places. Now the very nature of the paper 1 and paper 2 is different. But yes, there is a point where they both converge, right? And there are various topics where they seem to be similar. Not same, but similar. So is it? No. So it's not low scoring. You can score. There have been recent marks 287, 286, 75, right? This year's toppers marks, you know, is 269 or 272 in their optionals, whatever their option is, right? So it doesn't make much. You can score fundamentally well. If you are the only few people who are going to score, still you can score very. Again, the issue is whether you are willing to do or play the part which is necessary to score, marks, right? I'll come to you and I'll tell you why. So this is not, right? Does it require rote learning? Yes. Everything in UPSC, every subject that you study, even if you say I'm studying mathematics, it also has a part called rote learning. Every aspect of the optional, every optional, GS has one portion which is rote learning. Rote learning does not mean that you don't have to understand, but yes, you have to remember facts, you have to remember names, you have to remember theorists, scholars, and so many other things. Only then you can utilize it to analyze, or only then you can use them to write or present better answers. That's the problem. So yes, some part has to be mugged up, yes, like every other topic of the every other part of the syllabus of the UPSC. Fine. So when you say I will talk about precedent, I will talk about governor, I will talk about federal relations, or I will talk about Weber's bureaucracy, have to write certain facts, and facts are inevitable for analyzing the fine. Now, so let's say these are some of the myths, right? Do we need a lot of current affairs? No, we don't need. But yes, do we need understanding of the current affairs? Yes, we need. Like I gave you this example, if you do not have this basic understanding, then obviously you lack the practical application that public administration as a subject requires. And this is the fundamental difference between public administration versus others. And then people say PubAd bewafa ho gaya, right? Like Sonam has become bewafa. Sonam is the talk of the media today, right? So PubAd is not that infidel, it's not bewafa. The problem is that you have not been able to understand the real nature of this. And why? Obviously, we all have limitations. There are time limitations. The people spend a lot of time on general studies also. There are a lot of other issues, right? The GS courses technically go for 1.5 years, and then you have to revise. And it is obvious by the time you study 5-6 months something, then again you come back to that cycle after 6 months. A lot of things you have forgotten. So there is a need for continuous revision, or at least a timely revision of these topics. Certain topics you have to keep revising throughout the year, and you cannot simply say that, okay, now because I've started preparing for prelims, I'll no more study my option. So that's a wrong strategy. 3-4 months you can definitely bypass, but then once the prelims is over, what will you do? You instantly have to again come back to that option. So a continuous, a long-term strategy is more easy, more simple, and eventually it gives better results rather than those quick refresher type of strategies. They are not that good. Fine, but let's say so, and that is true with every option, not just this option. So we'll talk about now. We'll start simply with what we are going to do. Now there is a very interesting phenomena. I'll start with the lecture now. Directly now PubAd, what we are going to do, how we are going to do, what you are going to study, what should be there, what should not be there. All those. So see, there's something called boiling milk problem, right? We'll analyze the trend of the papers, right? So I have obviously that is my work, that is my role, that's my expertise. So I've been studying the papers of the last 5-7 years, right? I'm not in terms of, not just in terms of understanding what questions to be framed or how to restructure the content that we teach, but also in terms of understanding how UPSC thinks. So that I've been doing since last 15 years. Obviously, as a student also, as a teacher also, it has been, that's a continuous process. But still, I took 3 years paper, 23, 22, 23, 24. I took it, right? And I did not just compare them. I tried to find out that how and why in a particular way the UPSC thinks. And if it is asking a particular topic in this manner, rather than asking it straightforward, or for that matter, rather than asking in a usual stereotypical manner, then definitely there must be some idea hidden behind that particular question. So asking something in a particular way, so there would be something, some reason behind it, right? So let us say now, there is called a boiling milk problem. So if you are a person who sees a milk boiling, right, in your home, somebody has put the milk to boil, The milk is boiling now, coming out of the pan, and you are the person who goes there and sees it. And what will you do now? Let's imagine. You will call your mother, right? Mummy, dekho kya ho gaya. Or you will go and switch off that gas, right? Third, you will do nothing, you will run away from there. What will you do? See, this is decision making. So whenever you see that, okay, what is happening? Oh, my subject is evolving. Okay, what I'm studying has some analytical aspects. So I'll run away, right? I'll call the mummy, I'll call the teacher, I'll call someone and say, oh, CC, what is this happening? Kya ho raha hai? Fine. Or I will go and switch off that flame. What will I do? Now that is for you to think. So it is a thinking aspect that what should you do now? That's a decision making. So when you are studying a subject, when you have entered into a particular process, fine, you cannot simply run away, you cannot simply cry, you just cannot leave that process. You have to find out the best fittings. That is what we are trying to search here. This is not going to be a regular revision program. Whatever we are going to do is not just a review and revision. It is going to transform you as a person, as an aspirant who thinks about a particular subject. How he utilizes the existing knowledge, improves that existing knowledge, and how he uses it to maximize what he is going to write in the exam. In 2 months or 45 or 50 days or 100 hours, right? You cannot change drastically. What you can do? You can transform yourself, not change. So transformation is more internal. Transformation is more at the level of intellect and understanding, mindset, not merely at the level of skills. So you can learn few skills, right? But people say write smart. I say think smart. Thinking smart is the best way to write smart. You cannot simply write smart by writing more. You can write smart by thinking more, right? And that is what we are trying to do, to develop a thought process, to develop an idea, to develop an understanding of how and what we are going to write, and why and how we are going to interpret a question. So let's say, right? So if I say, okay, overloaded lift, let's say another simple example, let me take. So there is a warning that this lift can carry 10 people or 700 kgs max. Fine. Now 10 people means, can 10 people be more than 700 kg? They can be. So which one is the limiting factor? 10 people or 700 kgs? Question. What is the limiting factor? The 10 kg or the 10 people or the 700 kg? Possible that 5 people of 200 kgs enter. Fine. So 5 people may exceed the warning, the limitation. Same happens with the optional or any subject that you study. When you're looking at the subject, when you're looking at the content, right? Generally what happens? You look at the content, right? And you start interpreting the content. You don't try to find out that, okay, this content may have varied meaning. Let me be neutral and then think about the content. What you do, you start imposing your opinion on that content. That is where the mistakes happen. So we have to learn things, right, as third party, as someone who is neutral to what one is, right? So that's a very important strategy, and then you can write very good answers. Right, let's say now. So we took up the papers. In these papers, you'll see that there are certain sections, right? Now, if I take paper 1, it's divided into 2 sections, paper section A, section B. Fine. 5 questions in section A, question 1, compulsory. 5 questions in section B, question 5. they are 50-50 marks that you know if you've written mains, 100 marks. Now, what is the strategy? The strategy is how to maximize the score in these compulsory questions. The compulsory questions are problem because they do not follow the limitations of this syllabus. They do not follow the compartmentalization of this syllabus. So it is possible that even if we predict that, okay, section A will have mostly these topics, section B will have mostly these topics, but then these 5 markers, sorry, these 10 markers, these 5 questions in section A and B, right, they might see overlap. So one very interesting observation has been that UPSC time to time has tried to create problems in section A question. I'm talking about this paper 1 today, right, as an example. Right, we'll take up paper 2 as well. So, and question 5 of section. So this question, this section, let me simplify it further. This section has 5 questions. This section again has 5 questions. Now, if I say this has 12 units, paper 1, 6 units and 6 units. So roughly I can say these 6 units would be visible in these 5 questions. These 6 units will be visible in these 5 questions. Now the problem comes where these are mixed. And then these questions are asked and then they are compulsory, so you don't have a choice. Otherwise you have to choose 5 out of 8 questions, that means 2 are compulsory, so you have to choose 3 out of 6 and at least 1 from each section. So this becomes little tough part, but for scoring this is one of the best parts. So if you aim to score 5 to 6 out of every 10 marker, that would be around 50-60 marks. Imagine, average 5 to 6 marks. You may not increase in few, but not all of them. In general, let's say you will not exceed more than 5 or 6 marks. So let's target 6 marks. And if you get that, that makes around 60 easy. To get these 60 marks in other bigger questions, let's say for example, question 2, which is of 50 marks. Fine. And it has now 3 parts. Now this is complicated. So it has 3 parts, part A, part B, part C, right? Which means, let's say 20 marks, 15, 15. You'll have to write so much, right? This 50 marks. To get these 50 marks, out of this 50 marks, how much you can get? Right? Maximum you can get 10 here. You can get 6 to 7, 8 maximum. 18, 6 to 7 if you're writing extraordinary, right? So you can get technically 24 best marks out of these. Impossible to get that also. If you're a good student, fine, you will get 20 around, 20, 21, 22. Likewise, 3 questions. Can you imagine? So if you are a very good student, in next 3 questions out of 50, you will get 22, 24, 25, 25, right? Technically means what? Around 75 marks, which you can get if you're a very good student. Obviously, if you're writing exceptional answer, you might end up getting 80, 85, but not more than that. So if we are dealing with these type of questions, which we have option also, right? But even if you write very extraordinary, we might not end up getting exactly in that ratio as we can score here. The problem with scoring here is that we need to be conceptually very strong, right? Here certain things will do. Factual knowledge, Hisa Pita stereotype knowledge will also do, right? Heading likha, subheading likha, diagram bana diya, find points like this. Okay, sir, gave some examples, use some case study. Yes. pretty average but good answer. Obviously, to increase it, enhance it, you have to be little creative, and you need to have some unique content to write. You may have a good writing style as well, right? So you can say, on an average, it is very interesting observation that to solve these 10 questions, we need to have conceptual clarity, precision in understanding the question, and restructuring, or you can say creating a very smart structure for writing those 10 markers. And that is one of the fundamental focus of this program, how to think, obviously to write smarter once you start thinking. Fine. So that's a very important idea, how to structurize thinking smart. And this can only be done if your content is well developed, if you are conceptually very clear, right? And you have to mug up the facts, obviously, which are fine. Now let's say, so I have tried to do this little survey for you, and I found out that yes, there are certain unique things which are recurring in the paper. For example, in section A, paper 1, right, generally you'll find the themes here. Section A, question 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Generally you'll find the themes in the beginning. What are the themes? Evolution, dichotomy, Wilson's view. These are recurring themes. You can write it down, fine, or you can also get the PDF once you are in the class. Obviously, I'll share it, right? It's a lot of hard work. It's not that easy, but obviously it is for you, right? Not for me. So, dichotomy, debate. This is one very important theme. Now, a lot of ideas can be generated around here, but the core topic is dichotomy, debate. So, you find questions on evolution, you find questions on dichotomy, Wilson's vision, and the debate around dichotomy. Fine. Then, good governance. The approaches of good governance, this is also a very fundamental question which keeps occurring again, or it's a recurrent theme in section A1. Good governance approaches. I don't know how many of you are aware. Can you somebody tell me? Fine. It will be really nice if we have an interacting understanding, an interactive dialogue process, right? Merely mugging up. You're not a university student or a high school examinee. Fine. So let Sonam be Bewafa, right? You come up with your answers. Anyone? Pranav, Kumar, Ankit? Somebody, can you tell me? Sahajpreet, anyone? What are the good governance approaches? How do we write things in a very simple manner? Right? So when you have studied good governance, you try to define good governance. You try to find out the features of good governance, right? And if you are very smart or you are little evolved, you might think about the critical perspectives of good governance, some scholarly views of good governance, neo-Weberian state, okay, Ankit, Pranav, but this is not the correct idea. I'm asking simply, what are the approaches to good governance? Right? What are the approaches? Now, in one aspect, I can view good governance as what? As means. In another aspect, I can view good governance as end. Right? Means end. So I say, okay, fine, I'll follow transparency. We'll follow ethics in governance. We'll follow corruption-free environment. We'll talk about zero tolerance to corruption. We'll reform the Prevention of Corruption Act and stop a young IAS officer from earning so much of bribe, right? Yesterday's news, the Odisha cadre IAS, 2021. Fine. So we'll do all that. Ultimately, what is the purpose? The purpose, so reforming Prevention of Corruption Act is the end. Training civil servants into ethical governance, ethical sensitivity, is it the end? Creating a very strong infrastructure against corruption, is it the end? Right? No. Right? So it is not just the end. the means to an end. What is the end? Justice. What is the end? Equality. What is the end? Welfare. What is the end? Inclusion. What is the end? Gender equality. What is the end? End of patriarchy. What is the end? End of violence against women. Whatever. What is the end? Decentralization of power to the people. People making decisions. That is the purpose. A very interesting quote. People are not the means to power. People are its very purpose. Right? So let us say means ended. Yeah, these are two dominant approaches. Around when a lot of questions come in the exam now. The good governance model of World Bank. The ethnocentric model of World Bank. What is the indigenous model of good governance? Right? Good governance in the context of India. Is rule of law a necessary, inevitable aspect of good governance? See, a lot of questions, you go back and see your PYQs, you will understand what I'm saying. So, we'll talk about this. We'll develop frameworks and answers for them. And obviously, we'll make a foolproof content that you have to write. That's why I said this time I'm not leaving these strings from my hand. Because generally we teach, we make students understand, we give them good content and we believe that they will write well. Fine, but that doesn't happen. So the students whom we have monitored too closely, they have scored very good marks. The student who become creative to the extent of being maybe Kejriwal, right? They end up, right, pathetically. So that we don't want. Let's say, so it is end, it is a means, right? Then the perspective of good governance, is it Western? It is non-Western. Is it ethnocentric? It is non-ethnocentric, and like. So many questions you'll find coming from here. Now let's. Then, a lot of emphasis today is on post-NPM development. Post-NPM development. Right? So post-NPM development, frequently you will find in the exam, it has not only come in 10 markers, but it has come in 15 and 20 markers as well. So you need a very good solid content on post-NPM development. It can be asked in varied forms, like the post-NPM development, you can have first the understanding of post-Weberian developments. And then in the post-Weberian development, there is a very important development, that is new public management. And then the new public management was criticized, or it was improved upon, or formed based on the post-NPM. So very interesting idea. I'll give you a common sense tip. Right? Again, like I said, it is very difficult. Once you hear it, you say, oh, it was easy, mujhe bhi aata tha, right? But uske pehle, so always be honest. Uske pehle aata tha ya nahi aata tha. Did you know before it or not? That's important. Now see, post-NPM, NPM, post-Weberian, right? And before this, Weberian. And let's say UPSC, interesting idea, how they explore, how they exploit these students, right? And teachers too, without due payment, right? So let's see. So Weber to post-Weber to NPM to. This is easy to understand. So there has been dominance of Weberian model. Post-Weberian is a reflection of criticism of that, or looking for alternatives to bureaucracy. Then NPM comes as a major paradigm, then post-NPM paradigm. So what is post-NPM? Is it post to post-Weberian? Anybody? Anybody can answer, right? I know many of you can answer. Is it post-Weberian, post-NPM, post-Weberian? Or it is post. See, this is post-Weberian and this is post. Can you understand this? Is it too complicated? Negative of negative, negative of negative, something like this. So is it it is not complicated. You study a lot of complicated questions in your CSAT, right? मुआ मौसी के बेटे के ताऊ के भाई का बेटे का बेटा, whatever. Study these things. Fine. Blood relations, this and this. Study. It's simple. See. So a question can be, right, post-Weberian developments. Write about post-Weberian developments. Now you will wonder, ये तो कहाँ लिखा है, तो कहीं था ही नहीं. This was nowhere visible. None of the books. Even Mohit Bhattacharya does not talk about it. What to do? Nicholas Henry, hey, nahi. So that's what I'm saying. Common sense. Training is essential aspect of developing this common sense. But common sense will develop in an ecosystem if we follow the steps properly, religiously, and we follow it right without much confusion. It will definitely happen. So you have a lot of post-NPM developments, new public governance, whole of government approach, new public service, new Weberian state, public value approach, new public governance, and good enough governance, and there are a lot of models. But what is the ultimate objective of this model? Some try to restore the bureaucracy or bureaucratic model of Weber, some try to criticize it, some try to criticize NPM, some tries to support NPM. These are the major themes which emerge in post-NPM era. Now, questions in the exam are designed around this idea, 15-20 mark questions almost every year in one form or the other. Fine. Then, another important part of your paper 2, I think it is visible till here, right, is section A, paper 1 has been administrative thought and behavior. In fact, I tell students every year the same thing, that 40% of your paper 1 will come from technically 40% of the entire paper 1 is basically this unit 1 plus, if I add 3 also, we can get a lot of advantage. We can add something to this. And these are obviously very big units. Public policy, CPA, DA, administrative law, accountability and control. If we add this, more or less paper 1 gets over. Right? So administrative thought and behavior. Now this is also one area which is very dominant. Even though last year I would say it was not that dominant. But see, 22-23 paper, very dominant. In fact, it seemed 22 that most of the paper has come from this one. So let's say, what is the theme in this part? Formal, informal organization, right? More or less, every year, one question 10 marker or 15 marker on formal, informal organization that you must, right? You can know, it may be asked last year also, this year, 2024, if you know. The question was informal question in the first section itself. Section A, question 1 itself, there were 2 questions on the same idea. That is 20 marks just from this idea, formal, informal organization. There is nothing in that. But the problem is when the topic seems simple, the answer is quite difficult. Right? That's the problem. Because when things are simple, we do not have enough understanding or enough content for writing that particular answer which may seem to be relevant to that topic. Because we have understood in a simple manner, because topic is not that influential in the subject itself. Fine. So let us say question क्या था, हाँ बताता हूँ. Don't worry, Jasmine. You want question, right? Question था grape wines के ऊपर. Grape wines. How to complete vast theory section in paper 1. That is what I am for, Jasmine. And obviously, if you don't want me to involve, that's a different aspect. Definitely, then also this will help you what I'm doing here. Vast theoretical understanding requires a thread. The thread starts with unit 1, right? Many of our great educators don't teach unit 1 in the beginning because they don't teach because it takes a lot of time it is conceptually very taxing for the teacher as well as student. But then I don't think the same way. The great inroads into the brilliant minds can be made only when great efforts have been channelized to understand things, and that is what happens when you start with Unit 1. It takes time, but your foundation has been built so solid that virtually none of the questions in paper 1 will be there that you cannot solve. That's the beauty of that unit. Fine, so chalo bhai. Let's understand. So the question was on grapevines. Then question was on informal organization as well, 24. Fine. And very interestingly, they keep asking this idea in terms of Elton Mayo or human relations management or human relations theory. They keep using the similar idea either in the form of human relations theory or Elton Mayo's idea or formal informal debate or the use of the terms like grapevines. So Simon, Bernard, Mayo, right? In fact, it was Mayo. People say, okay, there are scholars, fine, Kurt Lewin and others also, right? There's another scholar, I don't remember his name, I'll tell you. They have been more bigger contributor to the idea of grapevines. It's not totally correct. The idea is attributed to Mayo. They were the ones who formerly might have worked in this area. Keith Davis is one of them, yes. Right? So they have asked 20 marks from this single idea. And not 1 year, 23, 24, and in 22 also 15 marks. Similar idea. Right? Now let's see. Come to another important idea, grapevines. We have just written this. Administrative behavior. Administrative behavior. This is the topic. And let me add another page. So administrative behavior is one topic. Again, where a lot of questions come. Again, I'll tell you what questions are there. But again, this is a very interesting idea, an interesting topic, which you have to understand. Administrative behavior you might feel that it is Unit 3 or there are certain things about administrative behavior, but you have to understand it in a very broad sense. The understanding of administrative behavior starts with the study or criticism of the classical. The traditional approaches, their criticism is the foundation, is the building block of the administrative behavior. Fine. So questions here would be more in the form of, right. It will be more in the form of, let me just quickly write it. One major focus is on communication. And these are regular topics, morale and motivation. Regular topics, morale and motivation. Right. Then, so if you're talking about communication, further broken into again, same, formal plus informal communication model. Then communication, various dimensions of communication law, like repeatedly they have asked about Bernard's idea, right? Communication is control in organization. That's Bernard's statement. Communication is authority in organization. That's it. So communication is, that is why I'm saying if we have to encapsulate the substance of this subject into a timeline, fine, then obviously you have to study in a way where you don't have to work that hard in finding the reference and the sources and the knowledge per se or the filtered or substantive knowledge. What you have to do is focus on using it in the exam. That's the only thing you should do. 45, 50 days or 70 days is not a very huge time where you can read all things, revise all things, and then structure your ideas also, right? So thinking smart requires conceptually understanding things much faster than you usually do. And that's the primary ambition of this Target 300 program, right? That's it. So your formal, informal communication. So you have communication, very important. Now communication has the impact of AI, communication in the impact of ICT, communication under digital era, governance. And this is very interesting. It becomes interesting. Many of you say, oh, paper 1, paper 2 link kaise hoga, yahan pe hoga. See, this is a topic which is fluidic topic. It's a general topic. It does not have the end and the beginning. Communication is a very general idea. So they have, numerous aspects of this question. Like when you think of this, they might say, oh, Niti Aayog has recently provided the roadmap for this, right? AI-based governance. India has recently launched an AI-based policy framework. What do you think is going to be the impact of this framework on decision? Or how citizen government interface or citizen government interaction is going to improve because of this or use of such interface? The question. Now, the nature or the essence of this question, the fragrance of this question is paper 2 type. But it has been asked in paper 1. And that is where your ingenuity, your creativity, your innovation comes into picture. Right? That's it. So this is one. Then repeatedly questions on decision making. Again, it is section A, paper 1. Now, what aspect of decision making? That's also very important. Are they asking general questions? No, they are not much concerned about what is decision making. Okay, highlight Simon's framework of decision making. No. They might be more interested in the application. First, the general. This is a trend of the UPSC. It's becoming more of trend. The first part of the question is very general. What do you understand by decision making theory? They're not asking Simon. They're asking in general, what do you understand by decision making theory? Or what is or how do you interpret the term organizational decision making, administrative decision making? How do you interpret this term? Right? So they might be interested in this decision making. Again, if you have tough question in this area, decision making, if you want to make it complicated, what they can do? They can, or let's say first, let's talk about simplification. If they want to make it more simpler, they might ask 10 markers or 15 markers, right? Define 3 stages or Simon's 3-stage model. And then one tail, right? The tail is the complicated tail. They have to add it somewhere, right? They have the worms in their mind. Can't eliminate that. So whatever Kida they have, so what they'll do, they'll ask you the 3 stages, model of Simon, and then they will say, okay, what are its implications for public administration? That's the tail, right, which is the difficult part. Then, or they might say, what do you understand or how do you interpret the role or importance of fact and value in decision making? Okay, Ashika, sorry. Okay, I'll answer, please. So can we just finish it because we have to maintain the flow, right? Your time is precious, mine also. Though result may not be coming today, we'll have to wait for tomorrow as well, but that's okay. Fine, but we'll keep doing our work. We'll not stop it. Anybody who feels like he's writing from PubAd, or anybody who feels that he is on the verge of writing mains, right? He's welcome to come and discuss with us. It doesn't matter whether you study or you don't study from us. That's a different matter. That's immaterial. Fine. My revenge is with UPSC, not with students. Fine. So don't use this word somewhere outside. It's more of a personal discussion. So, right. So let's say facts and values now, making the question complicated in terms of facts and values. So here now the question may become little difficult. But see, writing part has to be, that is what we learn. That how do we decipher the question and then we write the most simplistic and yet most effective answer that can be. So any of us who is not even Shashi Tharoor or even half of him or just his virtual shadow can write very good answers. Even though questions may seem to be complicated, the answers have to be simplistic. I'm not saying average, below average, I'm saying simplistic. Simplicity is the key to scoring high. And simplicity comes with conceptual clarity, not with below average knowledge. So kindly don't confuse. Simplicity comes with merit. Fine? It doesn't come with lack of knowledge or ignorance. It's not part of ignorance. So you may get questions on fact and value, and that is how this part can become little tough now. So UPSC has this habit, this tendency, right? Or it can ask, what are various models of decision making? Right? Or it is in the habit of asking, okay, what is bounded rationality? Or use the word buffered rationality. Right? Bounded rationality, buffered rationality, restricted rationality, whatever terms you use, right? Or satisficing. Is the model satisficing model of decision making effective in developing countries like India? And likewise. So decision making is one recurrent topic. Simon is one recurrent topic. Even Bernard and Simon both have contributed to decision making, right? So both of them are most likely to be fitted into the question. Zone of indifference, zone of acceptance. Bernard's concept of fiction of authority, how does it impact the decision making in organization? Now you have never thought of it, right? Because that is not in Prasad and Prasad. That's not even in Mohit Bhattacharya. That is why, see, people who are born today, a few years back, right, and they think that they are smart enough using ChatGPT and they can teach using PPT after that. Fine, that is not how UPSC thinks. It has proven in this prelims that you are just an information-based teacher or information-based student, you will not be able to qualify. You need much more beyond information. Experience, analysis, and somewhere anticipation are the key aspects of cracking the UPSC. There are very three vital things. Anticipation is one of them. Anticipation doesn't come merely by mugging notes or getting a rank in the examination. It requires rigorous effort over a period of time. Right? Otherwise, a person who compiles all the research from the ChatGPT, he would be the one getting the Nobel Prize. Why will somebody who has put 25, 30, 40 years of his life gets Nobel Prize? Originality of ideas. So merely qualifying the exam or just writing mains or interview does not qualify you to make you a teacher to teach. It's a practice, it's a sadhana which requires years and years of effort, interpretation, experience, right? So when questions will be designed, they will be designed keeping this in mind, but try to understand the answers have to be simple. And that is the beauty of conceptual understanding. To understand things logically, you will realize that, okay, how simple this question was, right? Let's come back. So decision making, Simon, Bernard, fiction of authority, right? Decision making process, personalizing process, functions of the executive. Now Bernard's functions of the executive, the book that he wrote, a very famous book of Bernard, 1948, Functions of the Executive. It is a very extraordinary book, and you'll see recurrently last 10 years. If you go and see the question paper last 10 years, even if you don't see last 10 years, let's say 15 to 25 or 16, 17 to 25, you'll find 3 to 4 times repetition of this idea in the question paper. Functions of the executive. Bernard is probably Bernard, Waldo, Simon, Foley. and even Mayo to an extent, are the scholars who are probably worshipped by the UPSC. Or they think they can make students, they can confuse students using these. That may be one possibility. Fine. So, see. So administrative behavior, morale, motivation. Now, in morale motivation also you'll find that they can now go into individual scholars. So the UPSC may start with a question, right? What do you understand by motivation? How motivation is a vital element, vital aspect of organizational efficiency. How do you differentiate between material and non-material motivation? Do you agree that material motivation is more influential than non-material motivation? Or do you agree that non-material motivation is more influential than material motivation? Give your views. Provide examples in your support. So example does not mean you have to just look for example in India. Example also means theoretical scholarly contribution. So very important aspect which generally no one does, and we do it. We in the foundation class we do it already, right? Very detailed way. We do things, lot of things. Language, vocabulary. Every word should be understood. It's not of a baggage, it's not much of a luggage on your head, right? It is not very difficult to use this idea. Language, vocabulary, understanding of the term, why it has been used. So, example का मतलब, some example नहीं, right? That momos wale bhaiya was going there and I was a student of UPSC, so I had taken up my moral responsibility to do this is not an example. Example means that you have to provide some evidences. You can provide some theoretical examples as well. What McGregor says, what Maslow says. So they may ask scholarly views on morale or motivation, favorite topic again. And if you look at this, I'll come back to this. Right, the content that I have studied, written, McGregor, see it is not visible, but it is here. Fine. Okay, I'll zoom in or zoom out. Right, but see, McGregor, let me take you to the next page. So basically, McGregor, X and Y. Again, if you go and see the question paper, he is quite favorite. McGregor's X and Y theory, very important. A lot of questions coming on these ideas again. Cosmology to reality. How many students are confused in this itself? ये क्या है? It's a way of looking at things. Is it an approach? It is a philosophy. Is it an ideology? It's not technically that. Yes, X and Y's are two cosmos, two viewpoints. But are they different from each other, or they are part of the same ecosystem? They are part of the same universe. So you have to understand that McGregor, Maslow, Herzberg, they were psychoanalysts. They were psychological scholars. Is there any use of ChatGPT? Why not? Definitely. If you want facts, you want some case study, the facts you should verify, Yashika. I would never say, because yes, there have been a lot of times where facts are not correct, fine, or not updated that much. But definitely, if you want, right, if you want some content, you're reading an essay, or you want some brownie points, or you want some bold conclusions from that particular topic, just use it. Why not? But like I said, it will lack the analytical aspect, right? Writing so much, giving so many points, lot of opinions and this and this and this, right? It doesn't make up the answer. The answer needs to have reflection of the human mind. You cannot simply make boxes and triangles and circles and say, my answer is complete. See how beautifully I have designed my answer. No. The answer reflects More than that, it represents it reflects your presence of mind, it reflects your originality of your thoughts. So definitely you can use it as an aid, not as a end. Means ki tarah, bilkul, why not? Technology is there, we have to use. Who says not? Fine. But then will you become only that? No, that's not true. Fine. I'll give you a very interesting example of that also. See? So motivation and especially McGregor. A lot of questions can be interpreted from it. Then ERG theory. ERG theory is also now becoming one of the favorite, especially two areas. One is leadership and other is basically the advanced motivation theories, or what you also use the word process motivation. These are now emerging as important areas or more interesting areas which are now being liked by the UPSC. So they are, like I said, they are focusing more on now process motivation theories, fine, and they are also focusing on, like I said, ERG or even leadership, and especially on the situational or contingency leadership model. So behavioral, situational or contingency models of leadership, they are quite being preferred by the UPSC now. Fine. Then Maslow again, like advanced behavioralism, ERG theory and Maslow. Maslow is also quite frequently asked, like I'm not saying every year, but every 2 years you'll see one question on Maslow. Maslow is quite recurrent, and primarily the Maslow or importance of Maslow lies in its application, not only to organization, but to human beings or the society in general. So the idea that organizations are equal to society, right? Or we treat organization as an organism, living, breathing, evolving, or it is equivalent to a kind of society. Diversity, values, traditions, culture, a lot of things are visible in organization which are more or less the analogy or symbiotically interconnected with the society. Social relationship, interpersonal relationship, informal relations, and all this, it's all reflection of society in organization. So Maslow repeated. Fine. Then other favorite topics seem to be scientific management. Taylor, as you see, recurrently asked. Then human relations theory, we have already talked. Then a topic is organizations. ये भी बहुत frequent है, especially when you see 10 markers. So organization topic is again very frequent, especially like I said, section 8, 10 markers. Or in general also, if they break up a question into 20, 20, 10, then also they will generally prefer to ask this topic, organizations. And here, what is important is like headquarter field relationship. Again, it's been asked since last 15 years. I don't know why they keep asking this question. Changing nature of headquarter field relationship. Impact of technology on headquarter field relationship. What are the various formats of headquarter field relationship? If you know, you have read about Bullock's and Urwick's model. Anybody who remembers the Urwick's model? Arms, fingers model. Have you read it? Arms, fingers. Theoretical idea, but yes, it has practical aspect also. Right? Now see. So headquarter field relation, again important. Regulatory authorities, regular question. Fine. Like corporate governance, an aspect of regulatory authorities. Public-private partnerships. Then questions on regulatory governance. Fine. Questions on you further simplify it, agencification. So question on regulatory governance, again frequent. Agencification, again frequent. Why? Because when we think of Unit 1, we think of NPM and many other impacts of NPM. We'll talk about that also. But yes, that generally also is a frequent topic in paper 1, especially section A, post NPM or NPM. So when we ask NPM or when UPSC asks a question on NPM, they can also ask a question on regulatory governance, corporate state, and agencification. I know, I hope post-COB finger model, correct? I hope many of you might be knowing the regulatory governance or corporate governance and these models which are there. So they can ask questions on this. Agencification, how many of you have heard the term? How many of you know the term agencification? Anybody can just let me know. Do you know the term agencification? Okay, Yashika. So let me know what is agencification. Agencification, the model of decentralizing power or debureaucratizing the government control. So whenever government wants to create independent agencies, it is like, no, it is like debureaucratization, Yashika, not bureaucratization. We need to create agencies. Neoliberal movement, correct? Reinventing government movement, right? So under neoliberal movement, one of the important means, one of the important methods to create or to reduce ministerial control, departmental control, debureaucratizing government functions was agencification, right? Separate bodies to correct, Kumar, yes. Separate bodies to deal with tasks, correct, right. But these are independent autonomous bodies, independent of ministerial and bureaucratic control. Second, ARC has specifically focused, it has more or less in many of the reports, it has highlighted the need for agencification in India. When you say what is TRI, it's a regulatory body, it's a quasi-judicial body, and it's an agency. What is Central Pollution Control Board? Agency. What is CBI? To an extent, it is an agency. Obviously, it is not independent. What is UGC? What is NCRT? What is CBSC? What is NSSO? CSO? Or SEBI? PFRDA? These are the agencies. These are regulatory bodies, or we are creating it in the form of a regulatory body. Right? Or there are obviously a lot of other forms of organization which we are creating, which can independently work. Niti Aayog, though it is not a regular part of the government system. Fine. So I hope you have understood, Yashika. Right. Okay. So agencification question. Fine. Then another topic which is frequent is, I'll deal with section A only, right? Mostly, is accountability and control. In accountability and control, again, lot of experimental questions can be asked. This is again a quite abstract area, right? A lot of experimental questions are asked. Fine. And here this, you'll see the confluence of paper 1. So when there is a question on social audit, what do you think? Is it about paper 1? Nothing. Oh, it has paper 1 inherently, right? But then social audit comes. When the question is on media, when the question is on legislature, executive relationship, right? When the question is on judicial control or judicial accountability, or you can say accountability of judiciary. But here the question will be more on the judicial control over administration. So how to make public administration accountable, how to bring the aspects of ethics in governance, ethics in public service, how to talk about third-party governance, that is media, civil society, NGO, community, and likewise. Fine. So how to involve paper 2 ideas, mostly in asking this question, right? So this is one topic where you'll see a lot of dominance of paper 2 type of ideas in paper 1. And this also creates a challenge because then we are not very clear what exactly we should write. So should we write paper 2 type answer or paper 1 type? Obviously, we have to follow the middle path. Fine. That is what we should do. Balancing the ideas, keeping the theory as the context, but using the examples and practical issues of paper 2 or Indian administration. Fine. So social audit frequent, like I said, basically the focus of social audit on accountability, development, inclusion, and empowerment. Then role of state institutions, like I said, legislature, administration, judiciary, administration, legislature, executive, over administration, and like you can get a lot of direct paper 2 type of questions like the role of CAG, role of parliamentary accounts committee, fine, and even an interrelation with the administrative law chapter. Because the ultimate purpose of administrative law is what? The ultimate purpose of administrative law is to make administration accountable. So accountability and administrative law chapter again might be reciprocal relationship. They might influence. Fine. Okay. Then administrative law, again, this topic seems to be quite tough by the students, even though it is not tough. The problem is because it is a topic, hardcore topic of the law, study of law, or it is a kind of combination of political science, public administration, law, to an extent economics. If you talk about industrial economics or industrial dispute resolutions, and likewise, so it is like a combination of 3-4 areas, and that is why it becomes little difficult for us. And they might be interested in asking questions sometimes probably from the law perspective itself. Like they had asked a few years back, right? 3 years back, they had asked a question on the traffic light theories, right? Might have heard of it. Obviously, this was more of a shocker. It was not necessarily anticipated, right? Even though if you study Massey's book or if you study the university administrative law book, then definitely you might find this perspective there. Or even if you are a good researcher online and you read the PRS legislative research, you will find this. But generally, a law student would study that, fine, or anybody who is more interested in understanding the contemporary administrative law changes or the comparison of the British legal system or common law system with the administrative law system. The person who is more interested in doing that, he will be studying it. But let me simplify it for you. So administrative law is a very important chapter. Fine. Generally, the simplest question can be growth and development of administrative law. Why it is a necessary evil. Tribunals, welfare and accountability of administration or role of administration. So let me just give you a brief of this because we will complete now section A. These are the important topics and there are obviously a lot of other topics. We cannot take up all of them together today itself, right? कुछ class के लिए भी छोड़ देते हैं, fine. तो ये more about telling you the basic idea. So let me just take a little bit about administrative law. So how many of you can simplify and help me understand what is administrative law? There was a very interesting statement in the essay, right? I think 4 or 5 years back, there was an essay, a statement by Earl Warren. The Earl Warren's statement says that law floats in the sea of ethics. Have you heard this statement? Have you tried risk-based regulatory approach? Yeah, obviously, today's models fine. Today we have evidence-based models, Ashika. So it is obvious that when you say risk-based regulatory approach, we estimate the consequences, the pros and cons of things, because we have statistical models, we have sampling, we have better population size analysis, we have better tools, we have simulation techniques, we have PERT, we have CPM, we have AI-based interfaces, we have operations research. When we use these things, the risk-based assessment or risk assessment-based comes. Right? So there are intuitive models and there are counterintuitive models. I don't think you should know all that. But yes, when we think of decision making, we can understand so many things. Today, at least in the context of policy implementation, policy evaluation. Fine? Authority, accountability, autonomy plus accountability. Very good. Fine? Administrative law. Simplest sense. What does it mean? The laws or that part of the legal study which is related to administration. So if we are studying the law, an area of study, that portion of the law or legal study which is related to public administration or administration can be called as administrative law. As what? As an area of, as simple as that. So if you're studying law, if you cut that portion of the law or study of the law which deals with administration and its various aspects of administration, that is administrative law. So when you say, oh, how will the constable manage the traffic? He needs some power, he needs some authority, yes. You'll say, yes. We need to give him some power, we need to give him some authority, right? The constable has to act. The constable has to act like an administrator. He's the lowest level administrator. But now, can he make law? No, he can implement law. Can he interpret law? Yes, he can. Where is the liberty for him? There is liberty for him. What is the liberty for him? So you're standing, you've parked your vehicle on the zebra crossing. He says, it is legitimate, illegitimate. How do we find out? He has discretion, a very minimum discretion. He has discretion. So he has interpretation. What is that interpretation? He has the freedom to interpret that whether this person should be fined for violating the zebra crossing or the rule of the zebra crossing, or he should not be fined. See, a very thin margin of interpretation. He has discretion. The moment administrators have authority and they interpret the law, or they get the freedom or autonomy to interpret the law, they get discretion. The moment they get discretion, they may misuse the discretion, my friend. Right? The moment collector gets the power to evaluate, to review whether a property should be a Waqf property, whether the property should be accepted as property by use or not, whether the property, assessment of the property is worth this or not. See, discretion. And I would not say that there are no procedures. The procedures are clear cut, but then also he has some discretion. The moment he has discretion, it becomes vital for us to understand what was the problem with the law, how the law could have been made more foolproof, how to plug in all the loopholes of this law so that this administrator is not able to misuse it. So even if he has the freedom to interpret, he should not be able to misuse it. See, the primary concern of the study of something called administrative law. So administrative law is that part of the legal studies which tries to understand how laws could be made more people friendly, more citizen centric, and they could restrict, they could stop, they could inhibit the misuse of power or discretion by the law implementers or enforcers. That's administrative law. See, so a lot of questions, my dear, would be on this. And like I said, the red light or traffic light theories were asked. The traffic light theory, many would say, if you use ChatGPT, you may not get a correct answer. See, Yashika, I gave you the answer. You go and find out. It will give you what are traffic light theories and this. But what is the basis? What is the origin? What is the basic jurisprudence of the traffic light theory? They might not give you the correct answer. That's the problem. Problem of plenty. 5 perspectives, 5 dimensions. What to write? So eventually it's the human interpretation that will save you from the violation of the sanctity of mind. The overload of information violates the sanctity of mind and intellect. And we have to save ourselves from that because we have to qualify the exam. Right? So traffic light theories, red light, green light, amber light approaches, right? This comes from the common law system. The fundamental logic of this traffic light theory is what? To understand the importance of judicial review or judicial control over administration. And see, the most interesting part, the most laughable part, amusing part is that in UK itself, they do not value judicial supremacy. So countries like South Africa, certain countries, other countries in the world, fine, Latin American countries also, many of them, or even those who are influenced by the French administrative systems, fine, they generally deny the judicial control, direct judicial control over administration. They don't like it. And that is why France has a separate administrative tribunal. So see, this is one area to watch out for. At least 20 marks from this area is guaranteed. But again, the problem for this area is that how are we going to phrase and understand the questions? Understanding of questions is a little difficult. But yes, now let me come to the point, the simplest idea that what we'll do. So we have this target program that we have, or whatever the method we need to follow, right? Very simple methods are there. We will have a 360-degree analysis, a conceptual understanding, factual understanding, theoretical understanding, practical understanding of the most vital, that means the parts which constitute 90% of the syllabus and probably 99.9% of the question paper, that we will cover in a very not so very formal, but in a very organized, strategic, yet an informal understanding, manner of informal understanding. We'll try to cover that with, right, obviously loaded with questions, formats of answers, interpretation of questions, PYQs, and a vital component, vital focus on how to think better and then interpret it. And so the focus is on transforming you as a thinking being, as a human being who can think, as an aspirant who can think better and who can rephrase the ideas or the concepts which you have studied or understood till now. Also, how are we going to enhance the content? Enhance the substantive nature of the content that both who have studied or not studied. Obviously, it is not for those who have not studied previously, but then we'll try to bring do the maximum justice to your basic understanding as well, and not just deal with the superficial or those high-end ideas. No, we'll try to start from here till here, but then obviously the speed of this process would be faster because we have to write a lot of answers, we have to develop a lot of formats, we have to develop certain templates as well, we have to bring a lot of indices, data, facts, analysis into our answer formats and how we are going to present it. That's the most vital aspect. So we have a lot of brain work and then we have a lot of hand work, right, or leg work to do. You have to put that into practice. You merely cannot simply understand, write notes and say, oh, I know. No. You have to format it. You have to design it. You have to create the content which you are going to write in the exam. And that's what is necessary aspect of learning. Otherwise, you keep revising n number times, 1000 times or n to the power n times, it doesn't matter. So how to use the quotations, how to improvise and use the statements and definitions, how to compare data, how to create a structure. There are three formats of writing effective answer, three formats namely, fine, but all these formats are designed around the substance, around the content, the relevance and the quality of the content that you write. It is not necessarily related to aesthetics or just the structure or the design or the look and feel of your answer. It's not just that. It has to be more than that. And trust me, the people who have done it, they are still, whatever people say that in this era of, the PubEd, no, PubEd is not at all, it is not an optional which could be forgotten. If you remember, a very famous line is there in Mohit Bhattacharya's book, The New Perspectives of Public Administration. He says, Weber can be criticized, can be praised, but cannot be ignored. So, famous or infamous, but not anonymous, PubEd is the subject that has fundamental contribution to your paper 4, paper 2, paper 1, essay, many other areas. Why? Because PubEd makes you a thinking human being. That's fundamentally the difference between this and other optional. I would not say it's just about content and theory and more of practice, more of application. But the fundamental difference is its multi-dimensional nature, multidisciplinary perspective, jack of all trade type of approach, and somewhere it helps you become a thinking being. That's the most important. So, administrative law is technically your 6th unit of paper 1. So your section A in paper 1 generally ends up with these topics. We'll look and review and these sections again. We'll take up this chart, this PDF that I have developed and the analysis we have done around it again, right? When we start the class, for which you'll be duly notified. I think day after tomorrow we'll be starting it. We are hopeful that today or tomorrow the result comes. So even if it doesn't come, those who are hopeful and who need to start it early, obviously that advantage you have to take. And even if you don't say advantage, it is something your majburi, you have to do it. You cannot take the excuse of not or waiting for the result. No. So if UPSC declares or decides to declare it on 15th or 16th because of certain reasons, maybe scrutiny, over scrutiny, double scrutiny, over analysis, data evaluation and all that, fine, then you cannot simply say that no, I could not do it because there is a no. You have to do it. Because it takes a lot of time to understand, you write, you revise, write again. But see, there are a lot of interesting ways to simplify this subject, right? Make it threadbare. And whether it is Mohit Bhattacharya or Nicholas Henry or Stephen Robbins, or for that matter, what is that, Holzer and Swetzer, or for that matter, this Avasthi and Maheshwari, or for that matter, Paper 2, and many other books that you may read. Nicholas Henry, Sad and Prasad, it doesn't matter. Your class will have much, much, much evolved content than that. So whether you think of these references or you think of the interpretation of these references, or when you think of the practical application of these theories in the contemporary scenarios, we have strategized all of that already. The good news for you is that we are basically, we think in that way, in those terms only. That may be a drawback which we have. So we think in the perspective of the UPSC only, and that is how we want you to think. And obviously put that into writing also, not just think. But I believe that people who say, oh, you can write well, you can write too much, write answer writing, practice, improve answer writing, make answers more tangible, worthful, right? They don't understand without thinking well, cannot write. It's not a manual or physical process. It's very much an intellectual process. So better you think, the more easily, conceptually clear you are, you see the words will come naturally to you, you can write it well. So using now the quotation, a famous quotation of public administration, right? W.B. Donham's statement, if you know, right? If our civilization fails, it will be mainly because of breakdown of administration. Or to quote Nicholas Henry, good government is less government, and the very good government is no government at all. So let's stop our discussion on these lines, on these thoughts. Go back, think of what we have done, what we have discussed, what you need to do. Why is it something that there is friction for you in scoring the marks which you desire? Is UPSC having any personal enmity with you? No, it doesn't have. But is it looking for a more evolved aspirant when it evaluates public administration? Yes, it is. Do some mediocres also get good marks? Yes, they do. Is there one stop shop? Is there one, single window criteria for getting marks? No. Yes, there can be a template for getting above average marks. But for scoring high, you have to rise above this template, this design, this stereotyping that you are. So kindly do that. It's very easy to do because that focuses on your strengths. It focuses on your ingenuity. Fine, but that has to be now molded into a format. That is what we are going to do. So we are the luhar, we are the cobbler, we are the ironsmith, whosoever, right? Who is going to now convert the raw iron into a weapon? That is what we are going to do. But unless you are the proper raw material, unless you are the proper metal, fine, whatever we do also, it is not going to transform you into the desired weapon. So kindly, at least become the metal that could be transformed into a formidable weapon. So thank you all for listening to me and giving your time. We'll come back with again the discussion, especially more advanced discussion on section A paper 1, and then section B paper 1, and then section A paper 2, and then section B paper 2. Fine. So all the best to all of you. I hope most of you will qualify prelims. Most of you will give the UPSC a formidable competition, formidable resistance in denying you the coveted seat in UPSC, in denying you the desired marks that you deserve. Thank you so much. All the best to you. Hoping for your results. If you have any doubts or queries, you can write. This is going to be one-stop shop for your 300. I said we reached 292. We will reach 300. We had reached 300 many times, but I'm talking about this scenario today where the toppers are getting 260, 270, right? So think of that. If you are in the range of 290 or 280 plus, you are basically a topper in the exam. So see you all. All the best to you. Can I take your leave now? Thank you so much. Yes, have a nice day. Thank you so much, all of you. See you again.